Hey, good morning. Today is August 15th, and this is the OLCC Commission meeting for the month of August. You take the roll, please.
Commissioner Chowry?
Here.
Commissioner Curran?
Here.
Commissioner Floyd?
Here.
Commissioner Glenn?
Here.
Commissioner Porter?
Here.
Commissioner Hayes?
Here.
Commissioner Miletus?
Here.
Commissioner Warren?
Here.
Chair Doherty?
Here. And I would entertain a motion for the approval of the July 18th, 2024 Commission meeting minutes.
Chair, I would move to approve the July 18, 2024 Commission meeting minutes as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Take the roll.
Commissioner Chowry?
Yes.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn?
Yes.
Commissioner Porter?
Yeah.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Miletus?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Chair Doherty?
Yes. Here. What's challenging here? Are they?
Both.
Both.
So we're
Oh, they're
getting-
joining. I'm sorry.
We're getting
Hello.
Jeanette online.
Um,
And we're gonna walk slowly to the table.
We
you want to come up and?
slowly approach.
Sure, please. Welcome.
I'll take some time to do introduction. Chair Doherty, I'm Nikki Terzia. I am the lobbyist and the government affairs professional for the Cannabis Industry Alliance of Oregon, or CHAL. We're pleased to be here today. Thank you very much. Today, what we've got on deck for you is a PowerPoint presentation and a presentation from a woman named Jeanette Ward Horton for New Leaf Project, and a partner from within the industry, a licensee, wholesale licensee, right here, Marissa and Joy from Nimble. We want to kind of share our story with you today through a look of the licensees. And I hope, Mr. Chair, that this will be a teaser, perhaps, maybe not our last conversation, but also an invitation to each of you to reach out to local licensees of your own. Contact me, contact us. We'll help you connect, get a tour, get an introduction, cup of coffee, find out who these folks are. These are business owners in your backyard. They have staff. They comply with heavy security measures. They go the extra mile to make sure that they are compliant in an industry that will be billions of dollars of tax revenue for the state of Oregon. If we are not now an equal part of the work and time and attention and labor of love that you all commit to as commissioners here, we hope to be, and we hope to grow into that with you all. The state of Oregon has a huge opportunity ahead of it with cannabis, and we're pretty excited to be at the forefront of it. Cannabis Industry Alliance of Oregon is now the trade association in Oregon. There were 4 previously that have kind of folded and merged and blended and adjusted, and we're one, I'll call it a family now, and maybe that's a bit glib here for the stand, but we really are trying to work together, keeping our differences inside the alliance, inside the association, figuring out what's going to do the best good for the greatest number of licensees so that Oregon can have the strongest and most stable industry as we move forward. Some of that is about working with our regulators. Some of it is about working with the legislature and the governor's office, et cetera. Some of it will be more increasingly about working with the federal government and our federal delegation. But right now, we're really focused on making sure that we can have a stable and a certain path forward. And looking into 2025, we're preparing for that pretty seriously. We have a policy committee that we've formed. We've got about 30 folks who have participated in 5 meetings, 1 meeting to go. But that'll be where we kind of reveal and finish and complete the platform that we're going to take into 2025. I'm not going to reveal any of those details because we haven't had our formal approval necessarily for it yet to go public, but we are looking at 3 very specific things. They've been built by the industry. They've been built by licensees from all around the state. They've been built by licensees from every license type. And as I mentioned, 30 or so folks. The Alliance itself is about 120 members representing about 500 licensees. So we're and hoping to grow. We'll see if we can make that happen throughout the end of this year and gain some more membership. One of our values that we're bringing to the table is about equity and it is about justice. It's something that has informed our policy setting agenda. And have I filibustered long enough for Ms. Ward Horton to join us now? That is real information, and I am sincere when I say that we're really looking forward to not just the growth of our organization, but the industry and the stability of the industry as a whole. But a big part of what we're bringing is the focus on lifting up entrepreneurs. And Black and brown communities have been historically the most harmed by the war on drugs, cannabis being the vehicle. We see a real opportunity. Other states have seized it. We'd like to do that too. There's something in the hopper. I do believe Director Prinz on a well-earned trip right now. But I know that he and Amanda and Rosie have been working hard on trying to piece together some sort of program that we want to partner on for sure around surrendered licenses, try and get some capitalization for entrepreneurs so that they can be a part of this industry, have durable outcomes, and frankly, not thrust them into an environment without support. And so one of the things that we'll be working on is looking for funding for these license types, for any kind of reassigned license that we can find to lift up this program. Maybe I'm jumping the gun and we haven't revealed the program yet, but one of the key partners in that is Jeanette Ward Horton and the New League Project. And so I would, if she's up there, hand it over now.
Okay, let me share. Jeanette, can we hear you?
Okay, it looks like my camera is working. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, awesome. Good morning, commissioners. Director Prinz. Okay, I also sent slides, but I can talk without them. So am I up first, Nikki? Was that my tee up?
That was you.
Okay, phenomenal. So the slides can just be helpful. It looks like it's up. I can kind of see. All right, great. So let's run into it. My name is Jeanette Ward, and I am a co-founder and CEO of an organization called New Project. We were founded in 2018. Some of you commissioners I already know well, and many of you are new. So I structured this presentation just thinking about what I could share with you about our work in Oregon and the city of Portland, and about why we do our work, just to give you some context and some history, and set the stage for the kind of strategic thinking that you guys will be doing in your roles. So next slide, please. I'll tell you about New Project first. Here's who we are, founded in 2018 and founded here in Oregon, in the city of Portland. We're a nonprofit. And our work is to rebalance the impact of the war on drugs on targeted communities. So ACLU has data we'll look at in a minute that defines who targeted communities are. We're also here to increase financial success of cannabis businesses equitably. And then finally, be an economic justice model for other municipalities, which has happened. You know, this was our mission and our 3 goals over 5 years ago. And I can talk about how we have taken the model that we started here in Oregon, started in Portland, and has been a copy across around the US. Next slide. Okay, so cannabis business owners and founders by race and business type. This data is national, it's from 2017, but we did a really small sample set survey in Oregon in 2020 or 2021 and found that the numbers were basically the same. And this is nice in a visual. So this is what you can see in terms of ownership for diverse communities, so communities of color in the cannabis industry, and it's very low, and it's lower than the ownership rates for African Americans, for example, of businesses in any industry is 9%. But in the cannabis industry, you can see it trending lower. The blue is plant touching, so that's licensed businesses is the least amount of ownership, and ancillary businesses being higher, and that has to do with cost. And I thought I'd share some costs about what it takes to start a cannabis business. Next slide. So it's really expensive to start a cannabis business. You may know this, and I may be telling you things that you already know, but if you don't, it's really important to understand, one, how expensive it is and how complex it is. I think these costs are an underestimate, but Chow gave these to us, created these numbers in order for us to just give people context about how much it costs to start a business. Again, I think that they're very low. It's very complex to start a cannabis business. People, because they're familiar with the product, make an assumption, but you guys, see over some of these regulations, and they're incredibly meticulous, and all that detail creates cost. And so this is a swag of like what it takes. It's not like opening a food truck or a restaurant, or even a dentist office can start for less. This is pretty expensive. Next slide. What that means is that people of color, especially Black communities who are at the bottom in terms of wealth and resources, are the least likely to start a cannabis business. They do not have the money. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but these numbers, one's from an Oregon report by the Meyer Memorial Fund on the left that talks about wealth disparities, and on the right, it talks about assets. So the left is kind of household wealth, and on the right is outside of household wealth, what kind of assets do you have? You have to self-fund a cannabis business. You're not getting a bank loan. So this is where you can see who has the assets to self-fund these kinds of businesses. Next slide. Oregon trended like the rest of the country in having a disproportionate arrest rate for Black people versus white people in turn when cannabis was criminalized. And even post-cannabis criminalization, ACLU did a follow-up study. These numbers are from ACLU. Oregon still had a 2-to-1 arrest rate of Black people for cannabis offenses or other drug crimes. And actually, I won't get into that, but what happens is the criminalization of drug laws do not get applied fairly, and it really does run along racial lines, and that connection to wealth is direct. There are a lot of studies, and I don't have that kind of time, that draw a direct connection to the decline of Black household wealth and assets to over-policing. Next slide. So you have this opportunity to take cannabis legal, and you had very clear messaging at legalization in Oregon that this was about racial equity. But you're not seeing the billions of tax dollars that we collect going into addressing the wealth that was extracted. And you're not seeing programs and supports in Oregon at the state level for diverse owned cannabis businesses. It just doesn't exist yet. Nikki referenced the coming reassignment program. And so that's our first opportunity to start catching up to the rest of the country in providing supports for diverse owned businesses. Next slide. We support diverse-owned businesses, New Project does, with the city of Portland. So that's how we've been able to do this work in Oregon. We have a really unfortunate tight geography to just the city of Portland. But in that, we have been able to launch this organization. We have been able to fund across the country $3.7 million to Black and brown and women-owned cannabis businesses. And a large piece of that was here in Oregon. Over 2.5 million was just to businesses and individuals in the city of Portland who we gave loans and grants to. Half of our existing loan portfolio is within the city of Portland. And along with that, we do technical advising and coaching, but specifically around helping people attract funding. So what we can tell you about our work is that we really ready people for scaling their business and growing their business by getting the kind of capital they need, whether it's from us or from someplace else. We also do a really good job funding diverse-owned businesses according to our model, which is one reason we've honed our work, because we are very, we don't take a traditional approach to lending. We take a approach that widens the aperture of who qualifies, and we fund 41% of our businesses are women, while in the traditional lending industry, it hovers around 10%. So we're just able to do a much better job. Next slide. Within the city of Portland, I just wanted to end on successes close to the end. So these are a smattering of diverse-owned businesses, Black-owned businesses, Native-owned businesses, women-owned businesses that we support. And these are businesses who have Stone Forest products attracted outside funding after we gave them their initial funding. Magic, a business that's grown and added product lines while the rest of the market is shrinking. Pakalolo is a business that's growing their retail footprint while the rest of the market is shrinking. Astral is growing into other states and staying local here in Oregon, but expanding their business to other states. There is no state level funding for cannabis businesses, not out of the Business Oregon, and they've stayed really firm that they're not going to change that position despite every single other legal state supporting their cannabis businesses outside of their economic department. So it's a wrong move on their part, but that's where we are. Luckily, the city of Portland was innovative, basically did an RFP to hire out another organization who's willing to fund cannabis businesses. And we have been the only source of funding available and have helped keep doors open, have helped grow, have helped employees get added. It's really a success story that could apply to all of Oregon if we can use this reassignment program as a way to think about what do we do both with supports for people to get licenses and proper funding. Next slide. Closing on that, it is a strategic plan priority for you all. Sorry, excuse me. It is a strategic plan priority for the industry. It's for a strategic plan priority for the OLCC. And it's just a really good opportunity to support small business owners, to support diverse owned business owners. You know, that's the business owners from where the innovation is going to come. It's where craft beer got its start, right? With small local owned businesses. And we could really see the same kind of economic opportunity in cannabis if we can just do what's within your power and say, let's support these businesses on every level to be durable and strong. Thank you for the time. And if it's time for questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, this was great. And I think, it's really like one of the through the history of it, I think one of the reasons I think a lot of us have been protective or were protective of the open licensing is because when Oregon first came on, that was sort of how we ensured equity, just to let everybody in. But I think as it's evolved and we've capped licenses, and we've got this opportunity, I do think it's important to look at that. And, Jeanette and New Project have been one of the most successful ones, and everybody that's came out of that pipeline. So great information. In terms of the I'm glad you kind of made note that those startup costs maybe were low, because I don't like that's the biggest thing is that we can grant the license, but like we really have to have, if they're going to succeed, they've got to have some sort of capital. And I don't know where that comes from. I don't know whether it's Business Oregon. I don't know whether it's here, or I don't know how it goes exactly, but I do know that they're looking at it. And I think that is an important part of all of this. So, I don't know. I know that I think Amanda and you all are talking, but I do think that's an important part. So not so much a question, but I mean, is there anything in terms of the funding that you've got ideas on of how that might work?
Great question. Yeah, I'm really happy for the partnership with OLCC to work through, what are the rules going to be? So both with myself, but a larger community group, I think that's really on the road, and we've got best practices to look at, et cetera. And Oregon's a good state to model in terms of supporting small businesses. So I would say we should look to what's already working in terms of supporting small businesses. And if Business Oregon continues to draw a line in the sand, then there are definitely other models we can follow to fund this from other departments who are willing, BOLI, for example, or from the OLCC, simply as an RFP to have another group run the funding. And then where do we get the funding from? Tax dollars. So is that general fund? Is that cannabis taxes, which is where it should come from and where other states source it from? I think there's a lot of options here. But a small amount goes a long way. $1 million in Colorado is what we are, through a revolving loan fund, transforming into 3 million over time, put out into licensees to help them grow.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think it's important to note that the most important thing is just to be transparent, follow the law, but we have to be forward thinking, because there hasn't been the access to the traditional financial mechanisms. So great work.
Yeah, thank you.
Us what other states have done. I'm interested to hear how they funded it and where. We spoke about Colorado, but I want to hear a little more.
Sure. So Colorado was grants and loans. They administer the grants themselves out of their economic department. And then the loans they administer via us through an RFP. And that was very loosely in law set as the funding. And, we missed that boat when we legalized. But they put that in their law of just very loosely to fund businesses. And then the economic department kind of followed the processes they usually follow. New York New York City set aside 8 million, and they ended up hiring a venture capital firm to distribute that in loans. And they set aside that from cannabis taxes again. So the source that's been most popular in states has been cannabis taxes as the source, but 8 million is less, it's like 0.5%, less than 0.5% of what they collect in New York, but enough to really get businesses started, especially to close those gaps, to say who is receiving funding and what small businesses are probably less likely to have their full funding package together. And here's how we can support them with these low interest or zero interest loans. Illinois also has a loan program that they administer through a third party.
Thank you.
Commissioners? Yes.
Thank you, Jeanette. Do you have a pipeline from prison to business owner? Is that what you're saying?
That's not how we think about it exactly, although we have many of our owners who were arrested for cannabis or convicted for cannabis. So we track how many of those folks we are funding, and it's about 30 to 40% of our owners have been arrested for cannabis. But we also fund folks who have had that familial impact. And speaking as someone who's both been arrested for cannabis and have my father and my husband arrested for drug-related or cannabis crime, it's the note of how that economic impact impacts the whole family. And so we're really proud of being able to say, it's people who were directly arrested, who directly spend time, but also those families who had a direct economic impact who we're able to support.
So how are you targeting those people so that you can uplift? I don't understand that.
Yeah, so we call it culturally responsive approach. So we have members of our team who are from those communities. I just shared with you guys, it seemed appropriate, but that I've had my own arrest or arrest of my family members. Our head of finance, I won't share too much of her details, but also had a close family member arrested. So it's our own networks. And what we learn about VC funding is that people aren't, so venture capital funding doesn't go to Black-owned businesses less than 1%. And folks aren't going out and intentionally saying, I don't want to fund Black-owned businesses. They fund who they know. It's networks. So if you track back to the work we're doing, it's networks. We are from these cultures. Our networks bring us folks who have these same experiences, and we are able to speak to folks in a way that's respectful and in a way that understands their situations and doesn't turn them away because we've created paperwork barriers that are too high, or language. There's a lot of language in finance that folks don't understand. That's just like you could use a simpler word. So we make those choices. Instead of saying pro formas, we say projections. And these are the kind of things that help I talked about our apertures being wider, that help us cast a wider net.
So, but to that, I had a question about that. You were saying that you were widening your aperture of who qualifies.
Mhm.
So that said that, those who typically wouldn't qualify now get the chance to qualify, but that seems to increase the risk. So how are you supporting or ensuring that those who, have lesser qualifications succeed, like mentorship programs? Are you following that? Are you tracking that? How is that working?
Yeah, so we can talk about the qualifications. We qualify people based on character and cash flow. And in traditional lending, it's collateral and credit score. So it is considered traditionally riskier what we're doing because risk is usually very heavily weighted on that collateral and cash flow. But communities without the economic assets don't have the collateral and they don't qualify. I showed you guys the slide, right? So what we do is we do look at credit score because we're trying to understand character. We ask people about what's happening with anything that might not have been paid or might have been paid late. We spend a lot of time getting to know our clients up front to better understand that character. We do provide the technical assistance and the mentoring and the after support that I think delivers more success for our businesses in terms of not just them paying back the loans, but in terms of them being successful overall. Our mission is success for these businesses. We're a nonprofit. We're not out here to make profits. So we do want our loans paid back, but more importantly, we're mentoring, we're supporting so that that they have what they need to succeed as business owners as best we can. So it is built into our model to be very hands-on after we lend, which is highly unusual.
What happens to those who don't succeed?
You know, what happens? In terms of the loans themselves, it depends on the circumstances and the agreement we have with the lender, but it's very emotional for us. We build strong relationships with our clients. So when a success for me is when a client closes their doors and then isn't able to transition. Most of the time, the entrepreneurs are serial. So even when they close a door, so right now we've got an entrepreneur in Oregon, city funding dried up. And that funding has been critical for businesses in cannabis or not right now in a recession. But the city funding dried up. I'm going to draw a direct line to why this business is finally closing his door. My guess is he's going to turn around and have another business. He's going to find a better business model. He's going to keep being an entrepreneur. But in this moment, we're seeing someone who owes us a little money shutting his door. I'll tell you this about risk. Our default rate is less than 1%, which is also in line with the average for non-consumer loans. So we do not see more default than what you would consider a less risky portfolio.
Wow.
That's probably what I should have said, but we're very emotional about our businesses when, they don't make it. So I gave you the stories instead.
Just watching it, because I look at it the same, like, that's one of the things that is important. The performance overall has been, below, like, from what I know, I don't know everything, but I think it's because how long has it been going on? Since 2018? It's 2018, that's a pretty good track record.
Yeah. Full disclosure, Matt is on our board, so he's heard this track record before, but since the beginning, and we started loans almost right away. Yeah, and so we've got a pretty decent track record on being really proud of that default rate.
And that's excellent. Thank you for this information. I'm going to talk a little bit about mentoring. Can you expand on that a little bit about how you mentor and how maybe anybody else in the business might find mentorship, like you'd have normally a SBA office would set somebody in there. I don't know how this industry helps do that other than your mentoring. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
So we don't have enough formal supports. Business Oregon, we have SBA, right, for a non-cannabis business, and they won't touch a cannabis business. So you can't go to one of those offices. Business Oregon has business navigators, but you can't use them as well. So we and other technical assistance organizations are all that are out there to support entrepreneurs. And we do a lot of connecting with mentors. So if anyone wants to mentor, we would love to have you guys as mentors. So we collect mentors and we make matches, and we do that for people we fund as well as entrepreneurs we don't fund. And that's part of our City of Portland funding, is to help, close that gap for entrepreneurs.
Thank you for that. Commissioners, any other questions? Nikki?
Well,
Thank you very much, Jeanette. That was excellent. Very informative. Appreciate that.
Great. I'm glad to hear it.
Thank you, Jeanette, and thank you, Mr.
You're
Chair.
welcome.
I'll just do a very quick transition, because at some point here you might be thinking, but what does this have to do with my job as a commissioner? And the answer is that these are your licensees. These are the people that are working to beat all odds to be a part of this new frontier. And it is still new. It's only been 10 years. Some would say a very long 10 years, but in that 10 years, Oregon has grown some amazing home-based businesses. The most popular gummies on the face of the planet, Wild, sits on Highway 212. Hundreds and hundreds of employees that work there every day with good living wages and benefits. We have expansion of genetics and nurseries down in Lane County. Capricorn Nurseries. We had a missed opportunity with an enterprise zone tax credit because of the constraints around working with the industry. You're going to hear from these two folks at Nimble, who have an incredibly aspirational and inspirational wholesaling business, among some other product lines, among some other things. And again, bringing those values to the work. So, I think it's been important for the cannabis industry to underscore, circle, bold, highlight. There are not that many bad apples. And what we want to do is be sure that the state sees that. And we think that you can be helpful in that and advocating for programs like the reassigned license program, funding with the executive office for that. If you know anybody over at Business Oregon, let's start knocking on those doors. Because if we can start to prop up entrepreneurs and continue then to deepen and strengthen the businesses that are already here and succeeding with the partnership of our regulators, then we're going to have a big party once those national dominoes fall. You want to talk about a party?
Of course. Thank you for having us here today. We're Nimble Distribution. We're actually right across the highway. So if you're looking to visit a licensee, we're right in your backyard. We established our wholesale distribution. We were licensed in May of 2021. And our mission is to do well and do good. We have given back, we build reparations and give back into the cost of goods of our brands. And to date, we've given New Project over $110,000 from our pre-roll brand Kites gives 50 cents per pack to New Project. As well, you'll notice Magic Cookies, Magic Edibles is a brand that we represent. They are funded through New Project, and we continue to champion that brand and are so proud of their growth despite so many setbacks that the industry provides. Marissa and I were on the Portland Business Journal's Women of Influence list. We were the first in the cannabis space. We're really excited to see cannabis being recognized in these traditional areas. I'm a board member of CHOW, and Marissa has participated in countless rec committees. We're very collaborative within the industry, and as well, we look to be a company that bridges the gaps between licensees and the commission. What can seem like a them versus us relationship, we really help explain the importance of us looking at this relationship as a partnership. And Marissa has built many relationships within all departments of the OLCC. We can go to the next slide.
Hi. So some things about what we do specifically, we have a wholesale license. So we and brands that we own as well as brands that we represent. We manufacture for ourselves lots of pre-rolls. We fill lots of cartridges. We've just started making an edible that we launched 2 weeks ago. We also represent other brands. We represent about a half dozen farms, a vape line, a number of other products. So we do sales and distribution throughout the state. We, in the last 30 days, I pulled some stats this morning, shipped 783 manifests to 353 licensees. We're everywhere all the time. We're in Ontario once a week. We're in Brookings once a month. We're, in Medford every week. We're delivering in the Portland metro area 4 days a week. We're in Eugene twice a week. We're all over Oregon, and we are a conduit between all of the license types. We represent producers and processors. We sell to retailers and wholesalers who are then distributing to their own retail groups. So we have a unique perspective and relationship with the industry because we interact with everyone in some capacity, and the majority of our interaction is advocacy in some capacity. We're advocating for our vendor client, and then we're also advocating for our retail customer. We want everybody to be successful. We do 3PL logistics also, so we're not only distributing for ourselves and brands that we represent, we'll also help another licensee just do the delivery, and they can manage their own sales and unique relationships with their customers. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it.
I really would love for you to come and visit. It's right there. It's pretty magical. We're also pretty remarkable employers. We're very thoughtful
This is me.
about employment.
Yes. Yes. We actually have over 35 employees existing across the highway. And we have benefits like PTO, affordable health insurance, employee stock option program, even things like bus passes for our green commuter program, and pet insurance reimbursement. Everybody always loves that one. We also do company paid lunches. We recognize that we have all kinds of economic representation on our staff, and it's not easy to show up well if you're hungry. So we also have 2 days of volunteer time that we give so that people can go out in the community and feel good about making a difference. We are second chance employers, so we look to seek opportunities to hire formerly incarcerated people and return them to the workforce. And actually, a quarter of our staff have been convicted of a cannabis-related offense, and half of them have served time. As well, 67% of our staff is non-male identifying, and 25% have some type of disability. So it's important to us to just really build diversity through our company. And I think that's across like, that's who we are.
That's us.
It's a very colorful warehouse. You guys really should come and see it. It's unique to the industry for sure. Our employees have painted the warehouse, so it's got their hands all over it.
Very impressive.
That's it. Thank you.
Commissioner? Questions? I think we should make a visit.
Yes.
Please do.
I'd like to do that, so we'll set something up there.
Yeah, Director Prince has been there a couple of times.
Thank you very much. Is that?
Mr. Chair, if I may offer just one
Sure,
kind of closing
absolutely.
thought to you all, which is this is, you're seeing the collaboration, you're seeing the intention in how these businesses and licensees interact in their communities, what they want to build in terms of the culture of the business, but make no bones about it, they are business people. It is difficult to survive in this business, and they are all doing it. And many of them now tipping into multiple years. And so when we move forward, and as we get a chance, hopefully, to talk again, and perhaps even get a chance to get some Southern Oregon growers in front of you or interacting with you during the harvest or coming up in October. Having some of those opportunities to really see what it takes to run that business and to stay in business on the ground is going to be really informative, I think. So I'll end with my invitation again. Please get in touch and we'll be happy to have you, not just at Nimble in the warehouse, although it is a fun spot and a great place to start, but come and check out how we're working in the fields too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent presentation. I appreciate all of them.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Now we have a compliance update. Michael. All of them. Morning.
Morning.
Chair Doherty, Commissioners, Deputy Wasiak, thank you for having us up here. I'll introduce us real quickly. I'm Mike Bloom. I'm the Region Manager in Eugene. To my right is Doreen Barksdale. She's an alcohol inspector in Corvallis. And sitting at the end of the table, I'm very nervous, is Kiera Jones. And she's also in alcohol. I believe that I bring kind of a unique perspective to what our problem is with fake ID and misrepresentation of age by a minor. Because we come out of the Eugene office, and the Eugene office has two universities, being University of Oregon and OSU. And we're getting ready to walk into a busy season where the University of Oregon is going to be going into the Big Ten. And they've got a pretty good number of freshmen that are coming in. And the information that you're going to hear from the two inspectors as we get into the presentation is about particular age groups, what happens with us mainly once the school year starts. But even though we're going to be talking about Eugene, we're going to tell you that this whole misrepresentation of age and fake ID is alive and well across the state of Oregon. What used to be where, if I go back a ways, you could actually, if somebody had fake ID, if you really did your homework and you were a keen investigator, you could probably find the culprit student who was in some dorm room somewhere with a laminator and a copy machine and was making fake ID that wasn't great, but it could get through sometimes. Now it's turned into this web-based, beyond our borders. Just go on the intranet and get yourself a fake ID, and if you buy one, we'll give you another one. And so it's really turned into that, but I'll let the inspectors get into those details, and we'll show you some fake ID and what it takes now to basically for us to spot this ID. So with that being said, I thought that what I would do is go back a little bit in history. And so why is it that we even care about these minors being 18 to 20? And I'm gonna use 18 to 20 because you get below that, then they become juveniles. But what we're talking about is 18 to 20-year-olds. So if I go back in time, and as I was putting this slide together, and I realized that there's good to this slide and there's bad to this slide. The good is that I got to live this. So that's right in my wheelhouse. I was 20 years old in 1984. And I saw all that, got a criminal justice background. I spent time in the United States Army. I'm a veteran. And I also had a career with the Oregon State Police. So all the way through here, I got to live these iterations with minors and what was happening with statistics and why legislators and across the country, why they kept gradually moving the drinking age and breath tests down to basically combat a problem. And so the bad news is, you're going to, well, what could be the bad news? The bad news is it's 40 years ago, and I'm realizing that I'm old. And so that, wow, I actually got to live through that. So with that being said, if we go back to 1984, across the country, drinking ages were all over the map. When I went back to Alabama, the drinking, when I first joined the Army in 1984, the drinking age was 18. Here in Oregon at the time, it was 21. However, it was all over the map. Well, what happened to us, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration started taking crash data, and you had organizations like MAD and some others started putting pressure. And you can look at different statistics, but the statistics range anywhere from 18 to 21% is the crash rate for this age group. So what happened was the federal government started putting pressure on the states that if they didn't raise their drinking age to 21, they're going to lose their highway funds, or they're going to be substantially cut. Voila, here we come, 1984, drinking age starts getting raised to 21. Interesting thing was when I went in the military, on the military bases, the drinking age was 18. And the number of problems that we had on those military installations as a MP, so military police officer soldier working garrison duty, I can tell you that the problem with 18 to 20-year-olds and alcohol consumption on a Friday and Saturday night was tremendous. They were just coming from home. They were the pressure of being away from family, and drinking was the order of the day. And come Monday morning, roughly 2 weeks later, we'd see soldiers out painting curves and stuff because they'd get in trouble through their companies. Well, what happened was the military started following suit along with what was going on with the national trend. They raised the drinking age to 21. And amazingly, the rate of problems, I'll say, not necessarily crime rate, but the rate of problems dropped by 50%. On the post that I was on, just by cleaning that up and raising that drinking age to 21. So if I fast forward tonight, now I'm with the Oregon State Police in 1995. What happens is minors are still a problem. Some start making the argument in the legislative process. Well, if it's illegal for a minor to be drinking, why is the driving age? Why is it an 08%? Well, what happens is the limit gets lowered to 0.01 to basically get these kids off the road. So you can see how we've graduated. We tried to tighten the restrictions. So some of the revised statutes that you see in front of you are the tools that we have available to us. I say charge there. Charge is probably the wrong word. I caught that this morning in the slide. Those are more like tools for us, options that we have to enforce the law. And some of the major ones that you see that OLCC has available to us, obviously we have minor in possession of alcohol, chapter 475, possession of marijuana. And those are class A violations, which means that they're punishable by a fine only. There's no jail offense there. They're simply cited and it goes down to circuit court. The person shows up, and a lot of times they may even be able to take care of it by mail. You can go to the next slide, Laura. So those are fairly easy to deal with. There you have misrepresentation of age by a minor. That's a class C misdemeanor, which means technically it's 30 days in jail or a $1,250 fine. The problem with this one, and I'm not going to try to go right down the slide, I'm going to try to make this simple for you guys. The way this one works is if an inspector goes out and they cite somebody for this, it's a crime. So they have to cite it as a crime. We don't have the authority to cite into the immunity court. So we have to cite in the circuit court. Unfortunately, the circuit courts and the DA's office are flooded with cases. The last thing they really want to see is cases like this in front of them. So what ends up happening is they typically drop the cases. They don't even file them. So the violator gets nothing out of this. Well, they've learned this. They've learned that there's no consequences. So what if I get caught? What are they going to do? Just take it from me? So what they end up doing, we basically end up, we're just not writing any citations. So what we've been able to do is through relationships with region managers in the offices, is we've leveraged some relationships with our district attorney partners. And what we're doing is we've got some of these district attorneys to agree to file those as violations. Here's the problem. So even though it's written in statute that the first offense can be treated as a violation, even the district attorneys, they don't want to take those cases because they still have to open a file. They got to do all the legwork to knock it to a violation. So we can't just write that as a violation. So it's a daunting challenge to us to basically work with the DAs to get them to move forward. You know, I'll use Lane County as the example. The conversation I had with the DA there, even his predecessor, was that here's the problem that we have. And if we only write, say, 30 a year so we can make an example, so that we can get these kids to realize that there could be consequences if you're caught doing this. We would only write 30. When I explained to her the problem that on any given day we can see is 200 to 300 a month, the position they took was, don't worry about the numbers. We'll figure it out. Just hand deliver them to us and bring them to us. So that was the path that we've gone down. We've only written a couple. We have not taken that position as yet because they're through leadership. We wanted to have a conversation with the commission about what we're trying to do and why. And so really what would happen is most likely is the citation would go down and it'd probably have a $1,250 fine attached to it. The court could then basically set that fine and just give them a monetary fine. I want to stress to the commissioners, we are not interested in charging these kids with a crime. I have no interest in looking down the line. A kid made a mistake. 4 years later, they're applying for some job somewhere, and for some reason they can't get bonded. Something happens where this comes back in their history when they just made a simple mistake. What we're really interested in is the violation, just where they get fined for it. And the way the statute's set up anyway is it wouldn't be till like the third offense where it elevates to a crime. But we do have relationships with our district attorneys where we feel that we can have that dialogue with them about what the problem is and basically work with them on those. But what I don't want to do is scare everybody around the state and the community that, oh my gosh, they're going to level these C misdemeanors against these kids. That's not what we're interested in doing. Some of the others you see there, forgery in the first degree. Since I've been here at OLCC, I've only ever seen one of these. And that was when we had a person that forged a service permit, and the DA did not file on that, and as I knew they wouldn't. The next one, giving false information to a peace officer. There has to be specific language with that. The person has to know they're about ready to get a ticket, and that they're not giving you valid ID or the right name, that they could be then charged with a Class A misdemeanor. Typically, we don't see that. As soon as we tell them, okay, well, we're just going to run it through the dispatch center at the state police, generally speaking, 99% of the time they come clean and they tell us who they are. And then the last one is obviously furnishing alcohol to a minor, which is a Class A misdemeanor. Now, that's the one that you could see where store clerks and stuff could be confronted with. But that one's also set up to where it's violations when you first start off. So they most likely wouldn't be looking at a Class A misdemeanor. They would be looking at a violation. But again, the problem is the DAs don't want to take these because they have to open a file. And when you have cases, the last thing they have time to do is to work on one of these. Or for example, I got a friend DA that's just getting ready to retire. He was telling me he's sitting on 40 Measure 11 crimes or cases itself, let alone having to worry about stuff like this. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we're sort of looking at. My hope is that between what the two inspectors are going to tell you is that we can give you a rundown of what the ID looks like, because it is not the same. And just so you know, a lot of the violations that we're seeing, they are not handing this ID to police officers. What they're doing is they're handing it to us, or they're handing it to security at doors. And I can tell you as a trooper, if I'd have been on a traffic stop and some kid would have handed me that fake ID thinking they're going to get out of a speeding ticket or a DUI arrest or something, they're going to get a ride to jail. So there's consequences behind it, and these kids know that. The goal here, what I'm trying to accomplish, and I think what we are trying to accomplish, is that I want to get that culture back to these kids, that if you think that you're going to hand that to an OLCC inspector, and who we represent you and our licensees, that's not going to be okay, and you run the risk of receiving a citation for it.
For just 1 second.
Sure.
Are we coming to a solution where we can help assist you in this operation, where we can fight for you?
I think the biggest thing is excuse me, been a while since I've testified in front of, or provided testimony in front of a commission. Chair Doherty. I think the best thing that can be done is that you guys all are in your local communities around the state, is that we have relationships with our law enforcement partners. And law enforcement does not want to take this issue on. They don't see it as a problem because it doesn't get handed to them. And there is no way that I can ask the Eugene Police Department or U of O PD, Sheriff's Office, or whoever else, can you go stand at a door at one of our licensees and check this ID? As soon as they see them in uniform, they're not going to give that deputy the fake ID. They know what those consequences are. Unfortunately, we've been in a position where what we've been doing is just taking it from them. Chair Doherty, I can tell you, these guys will tell you, I can't even tell you how many times we've taken fake ID off of a kid and they go like this. Okay, we tell them, okay, here's how you can, this is what could happen. Don't do this again. Okay, we take it from them. Can I have that back? Well, no, we're not giving it back to you. That happens more often than what happens a lot, doesn't it?
Yes.
And then they're appalled that we took their fake ID. So that's the culture that's been created. And so getting back to what you had asked, I think the biggest thing is if it could just be shared in the community that this fake ID is an issue, and that if those partners would just help us out and understand what it is that we're doing, and we're trying to do this in a way that doesn't totally smash the violator or the young individual, and that we're just trying to get compliance out of them without dropping a heavy hammer on them. That's really what we're after.
I mean, this issue, as you know, it's become increasingly personal to me, for many reasons. And I think that this issue is bigger than you all or the commissioner, any of that. And I think that, you know, we all miss opportunities. Dropping the case, I don't think it's a good idea. But if you had some kind of a path to compelling or required educational series that these kids would have to be funneled to, then the DA doesn't have to worry about anything much. You don't have that much to worry about. And the goal of educating them is just, it's more passive. It's right there. So, and like I said, I think it's bigger than the commission. I think what you're asking, I understand it, but I don't think that that's the solution. I think that there has to be, I guess it's legislative. I'm not sure. I'm not informed about that part, but I think that we all, you could, I don't know, lobby the legislators or whoever, I don't know, how would that be handled? Like the seatbelt laws, you know, you don't have any people, you have to go to these classes, but make it more like a series of classes that they absolutely they're required to attend.
The only tools you have are criminal charge. You can't start with a violation.
Sort of. So like I said, what we've done is we've facilitated these being lowered to a violation through the district attorney's offices. So
it has to go to the.
Correct.
You can't make it a violation from the get-go.
We cannot. My suggestion would be is that that's a legislative fix, and that Director Evans and leadership would that would rest with them to figure out how best they would want to proceed with that.
Would that help you?
Well, absolutely.
Because the violations are just all punitive. They're not getting anything out of that. Really. They're not learning why.
Yes,
how it's-
Commissioner Fay, Guy Von Porter. So, but here's the deal with that. So if we had the authority to cite into muni courts, so muni courts do have some programs that are available, and that will be up to the judge. Or so typically what happens when they want to do some sort of outreach or get them involved in counseling or something, that will happen on the end of the court. The court will then try to figure out what type of services that they can do up front. Now, there are some things that we can do up front. We can most certainly go to universities, go to student conduct. We can do things of that nature. Do I believe that that's going to have a big impact? Not at first, it's not. I think that you're going to have some enforcement to it to realize that there's consequences. And I do believe that that there's a disparity that happens. So if we catch, one of the concerns that we've had is if I catch a minor over here who's not in college, and trust me, so we've seen rodeo contestants come from another state to try to get into a dance at a rodeo that have fake Texas ID. And they're not even from here. They're totally from outside of here. So, but with that being said, what we don't really want to run into a position of is that the student, if we catch the student, all we do is we refer this person to student conduct, but because this one's not a student, you're getting a $1,250 fine. So we try to be very careful with that, to try to be very uniform about how we're going to do that so that there's no disparity about the enforcement piece. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that there's got to be a way for outreach to get out there to educate all these kids out there that this is a problem and it's not okay, you know, that they're doing this. But at the end of this, I'll explain what the consequences are to some of these kids that are getting into some of these places with fake ID.
So if you had the part that you're in a violation, which is a legislative issue, then that they would be referred to a lower court, and that lower court could So you're gonna get some education.
Yeah, so it'd be almost like getting a speeding ticket.
Yeah.
You know what, here's your $1,250 fine or whatever the legislature wants to affix to the violation. They would be issued the citation. They would show up in court and it'd be just like getting a speeding ticket. Judge would talk to them. Okay, here's what's going on. And the judge has discretion at that point. You know, just like if you go in and they look at your driving record and okay, you're gonna go to traffic school. Judges still have that option available. Judges could make it an option where, so you got fake ID. Okay, so what are you doing? Well, maybe they make them go to an alcohol course or something. The courts totally have that flexibility if that's what they choose to do.
Right. So we will alleviate the DA, by less criminal citations if we can get you the authority to.
And there is an option where I do know the presiding court judge in Lane County. I mean, if this were to continue down its path, I certainly could see where a conversation with the presiding court judge, okay, look, so you start seeing 100 of these a year. Is there a remedial program or something that you could, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Commissioner Hayes, yeah.
I was gonna say, wow, this is deja vu. Again, I retired as Director of Health and Human Services for Lane County. And we were working on this, and I also had juvenile justice as well as public health and fire department. So, the problem's the same. It hasn't changed. Also, I really appreciate what you said, which is if everybody gets away with it, the communication among young people is amazing, particularly at the UFO. They can get out that and remember how they got around the COVID violations. So it's fast and furious. I also don't think, I can only imagine your conversation with District Attorney Perlow about their overwhelming amount. I worry about Muni Court just because it is already very, very crowded, and I don't know that that's the actual answer.
So we can't cite into that.
I know, but if you choose to move that way, I think we just, how do you help support that? Because that may be the best bet, but it's full. So then how do we support expanding that in some way? You know how you have traffic court on Tuesday, you have minor possession court on Wednesday, and everybody sees everybody. So I don't know. I just know you got a big lift, and I remember that with juveniles, and I know we're talking older, but there was options for classes as a way to get out of the fine. At least there was a number of years ago. So I appreciate you trying because it is ridiculous how easy it is, and we know what happens when you start drinking early, and we know all of that. So I think we just have to see it's bigger than a quick fix. As you know, it's some in-depth work, and I think community court would be great, particularly if there was a way to support them to expand, at least where we are in Lane County. I don't know about other community court. So thank you very much. It's nice to meet you. Sorry we haven't run across the paths.
With that, I give you Doreen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Like Mike said, my name is Doreen Barksdale. I am the Benton County Inspector out of the Eugene region, and I have some fake IDs that I'm going to pass out.
I don't realize the after.
I have some IDs I'm going to pass out to you, and just so you're aware, the very first ID on top is marked with an R. That means it's a real ID. The other IDs underneath are fake IDs. So as of December 2023, today's date, we have collected 900, the slide says 929, but as of last night, it was 930, because I got a fake ID. This is the one I got last night while I was working a sporting event. On average, in a calendar year, we pull about 2 5-gallon buckets full of fake IDs. This is, as you can see, just halfway full. At this time, we shred a lot of the IDs that we get just because there's too many of them. We don't want to hang on to that many fake IDs. We do put a lot of them into training binders. I created this binder myself. It's all different state ID fake IDs separated by state. We use those as training pieces when we go to licensed premises and staff and security, etc. As you can see in front of you, the IDs that you've been handed, the fake IDs, you might be looking at some of them and say, I can kind of tell the difference between the real ID and the fake ID, but my guess is most of you are looking at them saying, I would never know that this is a fake ID. The quality is just that good. It's incredible. Yeah, we are always impressed at how good they get. They just continue to get better. We know that the majority of licensed premises that we go to or events that we go to, not all fake IDs are being caught. Licensees just don't have the resources that we have to be able to look into why something appears fake or what's hinting at us that it might be a fake ID. Something really important to note, we don't hold licensees accountable. So for not finding a fake ID. If we walk into a licensed premises and we find minors in possession with alcohol and we question them on, hey, we'd like to check your ID because you look young. We find them with a fake ID. The conversation is with the minor. It might also be with bar staff or bar security or licensed premises security or an event, etc. Just to let them know, hey, we found this person with alcohol. They're underage. We confirm that they have a fake ID and we're going to give them to you and you can let us know what you want to do with them. Most of the time, most places are like, we want them out of here. Any event, as I said last night, I was working at a sporting event and I took this fake ID. Most events that we work, most licensed premises that we go to, especially in the evening hours, we find around on average 1 to 20 fake IDs. I worked a rodeo event a couple of weeks ago and in a 2-night period, I pulled 13 fake IDs. These are 3 of the fake IDs that I pulled. These ones are really, 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 really good. I got them in my hand. I thought they were real. I'll talk about tools that we use in just a second, but I thought they were real. They were so good. But these are first 3 of the 13 that I received at that event. Next slide, please, Lauren. So you might be wondering how these younger folks get their hands on fake IDs. And most of them, if not all of them, are getting them off websites online. If you just do a preliminary search of fake IDs, just Google how to get a fake ID, you will see all sorts of websites that pop up. You'll see all sorts of TikTok videos that pop up about what's a good fake ID, what's a bad fake ID, what not to do with your fake ID, what to do with your fake ID. So that information, it's all out. It's all over the place. Younger folks have their hands. They're able to find it really easily. One thing I want to point out on this slide, so this is just a picture taken from a website that sells fake IDs. And one of the things I want to point out is the Ohio and the Ontario ID. As you'll see on those IDs, it says Ohio scannable ID, Ontario scannable ID. What that means, and just kind of, so you know, we started hearing this about 2 or 3 years ago. We'd be out and about and younger folks started saying things like, my ID scans. Well, that's odd, right? I've never thought my real ID scans. I've never thought of that. And what they mean by it scans is licensed premises use age verification equipment. Not every licensed premises use it, but it's usually like your grocery stores, your convenience stores, where you get asked for your ID and they scan it on something. That's what these younger folks are talking about when they say it's scannable, or what this website is talking about when it says it's scannable. It's able to scan on the age verification equipment and show as real. That is a good majority of the fake IDs that we receive. They scan as a real ID. So the person gets the ID in their hand, the clerk or seller or bar staff security, they scan the ID and they look at the ID, look at the date of birth, everything looks real to them. They don't know any better. So they sell alcohol to a minor with a fake ID because they didn't know. These IDs are just that good. Next slide, please, Laura. Another thing we know, and I'm going to pass these out as well, you guys. Another thing that we know is if they get one, they get many. And as you can see, this is again pulled from a website online. I don't have enough, but you can just pass these ones around. What I just handed out are duplicate IDs. Basically, the person that got those IDs got multiple IDs. The one that has the most that I passed out has 4 IDs. He is now 21 years old, but I think he did like 2 Ohio IDs and then a different state for the other 2. So they know they can buy multiple. And as you can see, this website says if you buy 3 or more, you get a 10% discount. You buy 7 or more, you get a 15% discount. This website is also advertising that it's scannable. But like I said, we find one on a person, we assume that they have multiple, either on them or back at their home or back at their dorm. It's just like, yeah.
So the websites, is there no federal regulation? Is there no?
There is, they're illegal sites, but what we've found, we actually years ago had the FBI come in and we got to talk to them about these websites because they were curious about these fake IDs, and they get shut down, but they pop right back up. Unfortunately, controlling the internet is not super easy. And from what the FBI had told us, they do shut them down occasionally, these websites, but 10 more pop. Next slide, please, Laura. So you might be asking how we are able to identify fake IDs. So one of the very first tools that we'll use is we have a phone in our region. It's called it's just a phone that has an app on it. It's called IntelliCheck. Oh, and I just did something to that. Okay. It's called IntelliCheck. And so I can take an ID, I can scan the ID, and it will tell me, the app will tell me, scan this ID really quick so that you can see, and you'll see that red alert right there on the phone. That's telling me that this is a fake ID. I do, however, have a stack right here of IDs that have both scanned as real at licensed premises and on this app that we have as real as well. So I am always, when I approach somebody and I ask them for their ID and they look young to me, I'm always skeptical of what the app brings back. So I'll still look further at the ID. So I'll take an ID, I'll get it in my hand, and I usually will pull out my UV light. Most, if not all, IDs in the state of Oregon, in the country, have some sort of UV on them. And so I take a UV light and I'll just scan the ID with my UV light. And I know that UV should be crisp, it should be clear, I should be able to see the image. I should just be able to tell exactly what it is. I also know that when I scan UV, it should not bleed through, the front side should not bleed through the back side. And so when I get an ID like this in my hand, I'm like, okay, that's interesting. It shouldn't be doing that. So the next thing I'll usually do is I'll grab these little jeweler's eye or magnifying glass lights. And you hold these up to your eye and you just put it really close to the ID. And what we're looking for is something called microprint. It's just tiny little print on the ID. On an Oregon ID or like this Colorado ID, it says Colorado State over and over and over. On Oregon, if you have a new Oregon at all, it says at the top of the Oregon, State of Oregon over and over again. And it also says your name over and over again on the side and on the back. I know when I take this little magnifying glass that the microprint should be clear, should be concise. It shouldn't fade. It shouldn't turn into symbols. It shouldn't just be a black line. So I'll usually use those three things to kind of tell, okay, I believe this is a fake ID. And then I'll start asking follow-up questions. What's your date of birth? How old are you really? When did you graduate high school? What's your address? Just some follow-up questions. And if they're not, if I'm pretty sure it's a fake, I'll say, is this a fake ID? Just get down my head, and they usually will say yes, but sometimes they say no. And so that's when I'll typically call into the Oregon State Police Dispatch. We have access to Oregon State Police dispatchers. We'll call in, we'll provide them the driver's license number, and the dispatchers will let us know that they're unable to locate the driver's license number that we gave them. Sometimes they'll tell us that we're talking to somebody who identifies as a 20-year-old female, and the dispatchers will say, this links to a 42-year-old male's ID. I don't know how that happens, but sometimes it happens. So you know, again, that it's a fake ID because it's not the person that you're talking to that presented the ID. We used to be able to take the fake IDs that we had, and we still have what's called LEDS access, but we unfortunately lost access to DMV photos and that LEDS access, so we can pull a record, but we just can't verify that the person is who we believe they are based off the ID. And so what we'll do a lot of times is we'll be like, okay, that girl, like, so this female that handed me the ID last night, she told me she was 20. So I'll go back to the office and I'll search, her date of birth would be 2000 and and 3, she turns 21 in November. I'll go back and I'll search her date of birth just to confirm what she told me was true. We also, as I mentioned before, we provide trainings to licensees. Just show you my fake book. I'm proud of this book. But we not only help educate licensees on fake IDs, we learn from them. I've learned a ton of information from security staff, bar staff that have been in the industry for a really long time. They'll give helpful tips that they use, and hopefully we provide the same amount of education and tips to them. The last thing that we can use, and I do this quite a bit, especially I have, like I said, Benton County area, so I have university in my district. Before the students come back, I'll usually pull this book out and I'll take a bunch of IDs and I'll just look at this book. What this book shows is it shows UV for every state. It has most, if not all, of the acceptable ID for alcohol that is allowed in Oregon in here. A picture of it and kind of description of what is supposed to be on the ID. And so I'll take a bunch of IDs and I'll just start referencing this book. What's the UV supposed to look like? What's the where's the microprint? How's it supposed to read? There's little, some of you, if you have like a California ID, you can hold it up to the light and you'll see the shape of California on the ID. That's called microperforation. And I'll just say, okay, this is what the perforation is supposed to be. This is how it's supposed to look. We get all sorts of tools that we have that we can try to identify fake IDs. So now I'm going to turn it over to Inspector.
Just real quick, one of the things I want to point out that Doreen had brought up was the AB equipment that's in the stores. So if we go out on a decoy operation and one of the licensees sells, the report comes up here and goes to the administrative hearings division or Melanie's shop. And out of that comes a decision where, they pay a monetary fine and they don't face maybe a suspension or the fine. Maybe part of the conditions, they get the AB equipment. They've got to install it. The sad thing is this AB equipment is not even catching this fake ID. So that's what kind of makes this a challenge.
So again, I'm Kiara Jones. I'm the inspector, liquor inspector out of Eugene. And like Mike said, I'm going to go through age verification equipment and how does the licensed premises catch fake IDs? So how are they doing it? So door staff, security guards are catching and seizing the fake IDs through repetition and experience. And this is mostly in the downtown districts. Most bars downtown have long lines and the door staff are checking the IDs of almost every person that's in line. So they're looking at these IDs over and over again. They actually have gotten really good where they can, look at them and realize that they're fake. And I think probably most of them for us, that's where most of our fake IDs are coming from, is from downtown. The bar staff is very limited though on resources. They don't have all the tools that we have. They don't have OSB dispatch or even LEDs or the IntelliCheck. So they're not catching every fake. And honestly, we don't expect them to do that. Inspectors can still go into a bar. We can find a minor with alcohol with a fake ID. So we're still finding them, even though they're getting past the front door. Not all licensees are effective as the licensees downtown though. We find that they often rely on age verification equipment or what we call AVE, and they're not looking at the IDs before completing the sale. And this includes the home delivery of alcohol. I know Director Evans touched base on the home delivery at the last meeting, but I kind of want to elaborate just a little bit on that. We have found that all home delivery companies have an AVE system built into the apps where they have to scan the ID before completing the sale. So far, we've conducted home delivery operations in Eugene, Medford, and Salem. Through these operations, we found that I can give my ID to a decoy to purchase alcohol. So drivers are not even looking at the ID. They're just scanning it and moving on to the next delivery. So I can give my own to the decoy and it would sell. And I think in one of our operations, we had 8 out of 10 sales that day. The AV systems installed in these apps do not recognize the fake IDs. I think in one of the operations, Inspector Barksdale actually pulled one of the drivers aside and we ran some fake IDs through their apps and they came up valid. So even their apps aren't checking or not getting the fake IDs. So next slide, please. Age verification equipment. A little bit more detail about that. Age verification equipment are the scanners that swipe driver's license to verify a customer's identification. Many grocery stores and convenience stores have these built into their point of sale, but bars normally do not. I know I was talking to a couple of the convenience stores, and what's happening is the minors are going in, the clerks are saying, okay, what's your date of birth? And they're just punching the date of birth in, and then they're doing the sale. So that's what's popular, at least in my area right now. They're not even bringing in their wallets. They just have cash. What's your date of birth? They punch it in and the sale is made. So ABE is also an option in lieu of a suspension or a fine for a licensee who sells alcohol to a minor decoy during a minor decoy operation. So when the paperwork from the Administrative Hearings Division goes out to the licensee, ABE is actually one of the options that they can choose the majority of the time they do. What we're finding is that the basic ABE system they purchase only calculates the age. They're not checking for fake IDs. I spoke to a couple of the vendors. The basic model is roughly about $600. Some vendors say they catch 10% of the fake IDs. Some of them say they catch 50% of the IDs. But when us inspectors go out and we're looking at these ABE systems after they're installed, we take a stack of our fake IDs, all states, and we start running them through the system. 99% of them are coming up as valid. I think I've only had one, and I think it was an expiration date that was bad. So 99% of them are valid. So those systems that we're putting in, even through administrative hearings, isn't catching the fake IDs either. Most vendors do offer upgrades to include better fake ID detection. These usually have a monthly subscription or a per scan fee. I think one of them was 65 cents per scan. So they are pretty expensive. However, the commission does not require that upgrade. So in summary, we have a lack of resources for bar staff to check for fake IDs. Home delivery drivers and other licensees are relying heavily on the ABE system. And the ABE systems are calculating age, so they're not detecting the fake IDs at all. So that's my quick.
And then just real quick, I'll end this with, we had a particular case where we had 5 minors who used fake ID to get into a licensee. It was a bar. And unfortunately, they were preyed upon by a couple of individuals. They ended up, we believe, and the evidence supported at the time that they were roofied. And they were escorted out of there by a couple of individuals. And I'll just leave it at that. By the time the investigation was over, what's said and done, there were sexual assault charges filed, and one of the individuals got 33 years in prison. But as we were picking that one apart, trying to figure out, I had one of the mothers who, unfortunately, was a very good friend of mine, called, and she was upset, wanting to know what we were doing about it. And well, I know the daughter, and I knew she was 19, and I said, well, how did she get in the bar? And what I got was, well, you know, Mike, all these kids go to college and they'll get the fake ID so they can go out and drink and party. And it's like, well, those are the consequences, and that's what's happening with our younger crowd who's not ready for that. And there's a reason why we have that 21 drinking age, is I believe that. And being a former, when I was on a drug team, we also had the vice side where we were working the sexual trafficking end of things. We knew that these young girls were getting in these bars and being preyed upon. And so I look at it as trying to get out in front of this to keep these young people out of these bars so they're not victimized. They're not ready for that, to take on that environment where they're being preyed upon. And so I thank you for your time. And if there's any questions that we can answer for you, we'd be happy to do that.
Commissioner?
I'm really upset, sorry. I mean, I think that I'm gonna make a bold statement, but when you asked, you know, what the commission do, you know, you get a boatload of money from alcohol, you know, you have this big budget. Why can't the commission lobby to just provide these AVEs and upgrades to all the licensees? Why can't that be in the budget? And then the other point is that, so we make, you know, hand down all these decisions for people who violate the minor, the problem of selling to minors. And then, I mean, is it that we just make ourselves feel better by saying we put in this equipment that by your own admission, you're saying is no good, basically? And that's supposed to make us feel good? I feel like we're just being complicit. So what's the answer? Is the commission willing to put their money where their mouth is? All the money that you're bringing in from the alcohol business, why can't we just say, okay, every single licensee, you get this and you get the upgrade? Is that too much to ask for all the money that you all make and generate and receive?
Questions?
I missed something. So can you run me through, I come in and I'm 18, yeah, it feels pretty good. And I give you, I give you my fake ID. I give you my fake ID. No, it's real. Then you go, no, it's not. Now what? How does that usually, and it's you, not the borrower.
Sure. So most of the time, for me personally, I will give them a warrant essay. I believe that your ID is fake. I have access to call Oregon State Police Dispatch. If I call Oregon State Police Dispatch and the ID comes back as fake, you might put me in a situation where I do have to write you a criminal ticket because you're continuing to not be honest with me. And for the most part, the female last night that I encountered had that conversation. I knew it was fake. She right away, as soon as I said, I believe this is fake, I'm gonna call into Oregon State Police. She goes, it's fake. Yeah, it's fake." And she gave it to me. And as Mike said earlier, we don't give them the option to get their ID back.
But, so then I just say, yeah, it's fake, take it, I got 5 more back here. And I walk away, you don't have my name, you don't know who I am.
I have most of the time, I would say almost 99%, maybe 97% of the time. Most of the time I do have your information. They put all their real information on the fake IDs. Yeah. So
I can pull out my Costco card and go, no, it's real.
Right.
I'm 18, I'm not.
Most of the time, the information is real except for the birth date. So, for instance, the female I spoke to last night, she said she turns 21 in November. At some point, I'll search that just to be sure. Because I always say, if I see out here again and I remember you, I could write you a criminal citation because it is a serious matter, as we've been talking about. It's not okay for them to just be like, whatever, I'll go, like you just said, with my other 5 fakes out somewhere else.
That I got on a discount.
Right, that you got on a discount.
But we're talking about maybe another step from that and not going through the criminal system, but
Right.
really looking at that next step.
Right.
And that may be where you need our help from OLCC, either in marketing or supporting or financially supporting, like Commissioner said, right? By tracking
Mhm.
on what would be helpful for you all. Thank you.
Of course.
And you did a great job. You didn't. Thank you.
I told you.
Whatever. Where are you going?
Commissioner Williams?
How receptive have, like, when issues come up, and obviously it's kind of loaded, but like when there's persistent issues, how receptive are some of the bar owners where this would be going on? Like if something like that is happening in their establishment, like it would seem like, I mean, OLCC's got to get involved. It's unfortunate because it really should be the licensee that's taking that into account too. Or when you discover these places, are you generally getting receptive or I mean, I guess I'm asking because it seems like some of them will be very receptive, want to help. Some of them are probably just like making money, whatever. So like, is that sort of how it works? And you kind of can identify the people that are persistent problems or, I mean, I guess explain sort of how it is.
So Commissioner Mace, you bring up a good point. So one of the things where Dorian was talking about is we don't hold the licensees accountable. So I'm going to add a little bit to that. We don't, but we do have an expectation that they try. So they're not going to get a free pass that they can just use it as an excuse that, well, it looks real, we'll just let them drink. So we do expect that usually the places where there could really be the problems, they have good door staff that are there, that they do a fairly decent job. They do not catch all the ID, but they do a fairly decent job. So those places, for the most part, that we're dealing with a lot, the licensees there to get it. The concern that I have is the peripheral, where they don't sell a lot of alcohol. And so, or excuse me, they may be down on sales. So selling alcohol is a big part of what they do. And as long as they come in there with an ID, we're gonna make that sale. The problem with those is they're also in the outlying areas where somebody's gonna be behind the wheel. And so now I'm dealing with kids that are ultimately, or a carload full of kids that have got alcohol on secondary highways. So those are the places typically that we start to have problems with where, and they struggle. You know, some of you commissioners brought up some good questions. They struggle with whether it be the equipment, whether it be the training, you know, and as it is with staff, they're having a hard enough time now trying to hire staff. So those are all things that we have to take into consideration, because the licensees will tell us, geez, you know, I'm on my third or fourth clerk in the last 2 months. I can't keep them. So we have to be sympathetic along with them to understand what they're going through to try to do the best we can. But I don't know if that totally answers
No,
the
it
question.
does, because I think you guys are on the front lines and so are they to a certain extent. And I would think any responsible licensee, whether it's a retailer or a bar, if you went to them with those horror stories, they would probably be your strongest allies in that fight, because whether you hold them accountable or not, which maybe there is a need for some rule adjustment there to hold them more accountable. But like, if I would think that if they're responsible, they would take it on themselves to really take that thing out, because they are the first line of defense to a certain extent. So that's just my thought on that in particular. And then also, you know, there's a lot of discussion I know about, you know, where sort of some of the advertising dollars go around alcohol prevention. And I do think, like, one of the things I've seen on the national level with the alcohol companies, like, they are very pro, like, the you know, no service to minors. So it seems like that's at least an area where everybody agrees, like, we've got to, like address that. So I don't know, that's just maybe something for the discussions on where some of those advertising resources go, which isn't necessarily here, but yeah, I don't know if you agree with that, but maybe there needs to be more public information out there on that, or you feel it's sufficient.
I will do whatever it takes, Commissioner, to get my arms around this, so that if I could even drop it, if I could drop it by 20% to where the kids realize that there's ultimately consequences if I bring this fake ID out.
So, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna make a comment on, currently, it sounds like there are no consequences.
Commissioner Warren, you're correct. There isn't.
That tends to be the first public address. So can I come out and stay with you?
You're welcome to join me at any.
I like giving away.
Event.
Just to step outside my scope of authority, what are the universities doing about it? I mean, is there any education? Is there what?
Commissioner Glenn, what I would tell you is that I think it's been going on for so long. I think that the frat houses and fraternities, I think they know what's going on. I know I've talked with Director Jurek, who's been back, and they've got colleges where it's part of the student packet when they show up as a freshman enrolled in school. They got an application there for fake ID. So, I mean, we've allowed it to evolve into something where it absolutely should not be. Now, I'm not saying that that happens here in Oregon, but I think it's one of those things right now that's just been, nobody has really done anything about it because nobody's been willing to try to put the resources into it to get our arms around it, unfortunately. I wish I had an easy answer for you, but I don't.
We've been focusing a lot on the bars and that stuff, but they have the same issue with the 7-Eleven or other, just the same issue going on. Yeah.
And Chair Doherty, it's about the same at, if I had to guess, it's probably easier to purchase at like a 7-Eleven alcohol. with a fake ID than it would be at like a bar that is familiar with checking fake IDs. Because those premises just, they rely on the age verification equipment for the most part. And when that age verification comes back and says that the ID is real and valid, they're gonna sell that alcohol to that person.
Well, and they've also, person that's serving's had some training on this as well. The 7-Eleven may not, or
Correct, yeah, correct, Chair. The servers, they have to get a server permit, and with the server permit, you're required to get alcohol server education. The clerks, I think, Director Evans mentioned last session that they have that clerk training brochure, and that is the education that they receive.
that's the extent.
We do try to go out, but obviously there's tons of licensed premises to our areas. We try to get out everywhere, but it's difficult to get out everywhere all the time. And so we do try to educate as much as we can, those areas that get inundated with younger folks.
Some training. Anything else, Commissioners?
Question. Michael, when have you seen, about when did these websites come onto the scene? Yeah.
Commissioner Floyd, I believe they've been up and running since about 2013-ish,
We've
2015.
probably seen a pretty big uptick of fake IDs since then. This is a bigger, very intricate problem, even bigger than Oregon, and I'm sure other states are probably going through the same thing. Do we know what other states are going through and
I do not. I have not
how they're
talked to
combating this?
any of the regulatory agencies across the country. I have not talked to them at all.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what other states are doing and how to combat this issue. I mean, this is a very intricate issue. Even some, AV equipment can't catch it. To what, you're very good at looking at these, but even when you got a call, police, yeah, I mean, it's almost as if we need to rely on some of our federal partners. This is just, it's very, very intricate.
Even if, I used to say, even as being a trooper, I used to get asked by legislators about, well, why even bother doing that, Mike? I used to say, you know what? Even if I can just give them a moment of pause that you could get caught. And if you get caught, there could be a hefty fine where you're gonna be calling home to your parents and going, hey, I need $1,250. Well, what for? Because I have fake ID and I got caught.
Yeah.
Just that word of mouth across campus. It could be, uh-oh. And even if I can get it to where the goal is that they don't even, that we get the respect back, that they're not even handed to the inspectors. At least I can get some compliance, again, to give these kids a moment of pause to know that there's consequences
Yeah.
for what they're about to
I
do.
remember in college, there were several folks that got MIPs. Even the MIPs were something to have to deal with, burdensome. Yeah, this is a problem.
I remember my dad said, you're not getting the $1,250, I'll see you Monday when you get out of jail. You want these back, and how much are they worth?
Yeah, I'll go and collect.
$150. Thank you very much.
Thank you very
Thank
much. Excellent presentation.
Oh, of course, yeah, absolutely.
Should shed some light on it.
Yeah.
Morning. Morning, Chair Doherty, members of the commission. For the record, Steve Robbins, the Distilled Spirits Director for OLCC. I'm going to give you a brief update today on the warehouse project and how that's going. They had cool props. I brought cool props too. So we'll try and make this interesting. We can go ahead and go to the next slide. So as I talked to you about in the last couple of months, of multiple phases to the construction project. The first of those was schematic design, much higher level, sort of where are things basically going in the warehouse. We have drawn that to a close, so that is done. And we are about to close out the next phase, which is design development. I currently have a 166-page file that we're going through page by page right now that talks about everything from grading to how the walls are constructed, to how the roof vents are going to be placed, to air handling systems, all of that, because we're trying to get ourselves to the point where we can conclude design development, start making procurements to start getting things that have long lead times delivered out to us here in Oregon. But for us specifically on this project, it's critical because we've built into this process the fact that the guaranteed maximum price, which is where we lock in the price with the contractors, the architects, everybody, when we lock that price in, is at 100% completion of design development. So we're almost there. So within this month, we will conclude that. And by next month, we will have a guaranteed maximum price. Now that price matters because once that's locked in, anything that goes above and beyond that becomes a change order. And change orders have cost associated with it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say there will be no change orders on a $150 million project, but we have contingencies built into our budget for some of those change orders. We want to minimize them, obviously, so that we're not having to get into that contingency funding. So we're getting very close to GMP, and we'll come back and report to you when we have that set. And I think that'll be a really good milestone for us because then we'll really know where we are. In terms of the contracting, the material handling system, which is the conveyance sorting system and all the racking, that's been a real stumbling block for us in this project from a contracting perspective. It's been difficult for the Department of Justice and DAS procurement and others to figure out who buys that, where does it fit in the process. We locked down last month. We locked down the fact that it is amended into the general contractor's contract now. So the general contractor owns the procurement of that system and the installation of that system. So we're happy to have that done. So what we've got in front of the Department of Justice right now are what are called early work amendments. And early work amendments then are getting permission to start to release funding to these projects that are now started. So we've got 2 early work amendments right now in front of the Department of Justice. One of those is an early work amendment for what's called the electrical switchgear, which is the big, complicated electrical infrastructure for the building. Big, long lead times on that. It takes 18 months in some cases to get that stuff here on the ground in Oregon. So we're trying to get early work amendments signed and cleared through DOJ as fast as we can so we can get those things ordered. The second is the material handling system. Again, we know where it lives now. The general contractor is ready to go, but we've got to get it cleared through and approved so that we can give them the money to begin procuring the system formally. They just are not contractually allowed to get ahead of themselves. And so we're kind of in this cycle with the contracting side to get that done. So we're hoping to get responses to those this week and clear those early work amendments so we can get that stuff ordered and get things on the ground. Now, that does not in any way mean that we're not moving forward with the project. We have a lot of moving pieces that are going on here. Alan Rowe, who will be up here, his team has been working tirelessly on all the details, like how do we wrap the concrete posts in the new building to protect them from forklifts hitting them? What are we doing with the electrical systems on the docks? Are there lights that indicate the truck is in a dock or not? What is the signage for the building? What's all the furniture going to be? All of some of the things I've shared with you just on even the architecture and how we're trying to figure out the colors of the walls and all that. So lots of moving pieces there. Quickly talk about it in our world inside of OLCC, the distilled spirit supply chain, which is the computer system back end. It's actually kind of an IT project, but obviously I'm the primary customer for that. It's become very clear as we have now given an intent to award to Accenture. They are the company that is going to be helping us with this system. And we are in the process now of negotiating and getting their contract signed so that we can get that done and get that moving. That has a lot of moving pieces too. It's why I brought these. I just wanted to show you, I've got a desk full of stuff in my office where we're looking at printers, we're looking at handheld scanners and devices so we can decide how many pieces of hardware are we going to have, not only in our warehouse, but out in all of our retail stores, because point of sale systems are a part of this DSSC project. We're talking about printers. Today, OLCC actually prints all of the shelf labels that you see in a liquor store. We print those centrally and mail them out every month to every liquor store in the state. The new system, they're going to be able to print them on site right there. So we're just figuring out which is the right printer. So some printers are fast, but the stuff wears off quick, and others are more expensive. So we're just working through all of those kind of details. And we can lock all of that down so that when we sign a contract, both the vendor and OLCC are very clear and on the same page. Last but not least, with regard to the integration between the warehouse construction and DSSC, very different timelines in some cases, yet we're trying to land both of those planes at the same time. And so we're working now with them to talk about what are the exact timelines, like when is there going to be a roof? When is the new warehouse going to be waterproof so people can go inside and start to do things? When is the electrical actually going to be hooked up? When will there be Wi-Fi in the building? When will the building be released to us so that we can go in and do work? We fortunately have contractual agreements with all the parties involved that we don't have to wait till we own the building and actually have it. We're going to do a lot of that work beforehand, but even that requires timelines and lining up this project versus that one. Do we do the point of sale systems in the stores first? Or do we wait because that's all the ordering systems that will marry up with the warehouse management systems? All of those are the types of questions we're working through right now. So I'm excited about it. We're definitely moving forward. We're doing it kind of quietly. There's not a lot of public fanfare right now, but we are trying to figure out all of the details, how we do this so that we can begin to reach out and interact. We've been canvassing our agents in the retail stores to ask them, what kind of equipment do you have now? Because remember, their point of sale systems are not ours, they're theirs. And so we're trying to get an inventory of what's out there so we know exactly what we need to replace. And then we're going to be talking to them about options. The nice thing about a new process that's 15 to 20 years newer than what is currently out in our stores is that there's a lot of options out there that they haven't had before. And some of those options we're just balancing between, is OLCC just going to provide them? Or are some of those options such that we don't really need them, but the store may love them? And then the store can invest in some of those things and trying to make those balances across the state. So just wanted to let you know that we are definitely moving with both DSSC and the warehouse going. There is a lot happening and we're just trying to keep that going while we run the rest of the business. So happy to answer any questions for you.
For sure. I have congratulations on getting that conveyor system underneath the general contract. Otherwise, you would have been putting it in yourself, I think, is that?
Yeah, Chair Doherty, yes, that was a possibility. Not personally.
So what are we still looking at a shovel in the ground at a certain date?
We were actually I was having conversations with Executive Director Prins about sort of a groundbreaking ceremony, the gold shovels and hard hats kind of event that usually occurs probably around the beginning of December of this year. And we're looking at, then really starting to pour on site and all of those things, a ways out. There's a lot of grading they're going to have to do on our property. So,
and then we're looking at a year project or year and a half. What's the?
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Yes, we're right now, part of the problem is this is kind of a domino effect. In order for us to really lock down a schedule, we have to know how the material handling system fits in. That is a big component. how it's ordered, when it arrives, how it gets installed, exactly where it will be in the warehouse, like literally by the inch, where will it be in the warehouse? All of those things are predicated on us having a vendor that specializes in conveyance systems. That is the material handling system vendor. So it's hard to answer those questions until that vendor is even on site, which is why we're excited to have the DOJ contracts cleared so that we can get the vendor on site and then get everybody in a room and start locking those things down. Absent all of that, which is my huge disclaimer, absent all of that right now, we are anticipating sometime late summer of 26 of having gained possession of the building. We will have reached substantial completion, and final completion is going to be late summer of 26. That could get better. It could move out. Part of it depends sort of on the contract side too. How fast are these contracts getting processed through the bureaucracy of the state? So.
Thank you. Commissioners, anything?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it.
You bet.
We're gonna reach this now.
Alan.
Who?
Alan.
Oh, Alan, sorry. No.
Good morning now.
Good morning.
Morning, Chair Doherty, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Alan Rowe, Distribution Services Assistant Director, currently overseeing both distribution and the purchasing departments. For the record, I do not have any cool props. So, this is going to be a quick rundown of how things are running out there in the warehouse. Starting off with the staffing, kind of talked about my staff last time, how many total FTEs we have, and the dedication that they put into the jobs. Currently, last month, we had a complete full staff. Now we have, looks like one vacancy in each category of worker, a worker one equipment operator, and a worker two, all of which are currently in recruitment phases. And the listing and delisting process. We just finished up the July listing meeting at the tail end of July. There were 55 product submissions, 14 items were approved by the committee. The 2024 holiday VAP survey has gone out to the agents for their preference of their selection of holiday items and how many. That is actually, I believe the due date on those is going to be this week. So we should be getting that holiday, gift items ready for shipping starting September. For the delistings, we still have those same items that are out for warning, that are vendors are trying to up their sales numbers to avoid the delisting process. They have until the end of August, at which point we'll reevaluate their sales numbers to see how they measure up still, if they still are on the schedule to be delisted, or if they're moving up to remain as a listed item. And the 14 items that the committee selected, I gave you all a nice list of the brand new items that we have added to the selection at the OLCC. And moving into the warehouse, our production for July, it was pretty standard July. We had 22 production days over the 20 production days that we had last month. So the numbers will look a bit higher. Processing over 1,300 orders. We received 373,000 cases, which is an average of 16.9 thousand. And we shipped 355,000, an average of 16 almost 2 thousand. So again, trying to keep the inventory static. Overall, we're right on pace where we should be in July. July should be about a 16,000 average day. Inventory, our inventory is actually down a little bit, much closer to where we actually want it to be. We're actually under that orange line that you see there, that maximum capacity that we want to try to be under. So that was a good step towards moving into the holiday season. Hopefully we can keep that trend going. A lot of it is monitoring how much of inventory of each of the faster moving items we have. trying to make sure we don't have a lot of overstock from the vendors. Returning what we need to in order to maintain the proper levels of inventory. Just again, a little FYI, these are the top moving items for July. These are not based on sales numbers. These are based on warehouse depletion, cases moving out of the building.
Chair?
Rose?
Yes.
Alan, how's the leader program going?
Leader program is going quite well. Those products that qualified that have been made, got into the leader program are still doing very well. We're actually seeing a lot of trend of vendors are starting to drift away from the 750 mLs and are just starting to go straight to 1 liters. Some of them are actually dropping into, I think it may have started internationally, the 700 ml bottle, which you're going to be seeing more of out there on the shelves instead of the 750. Why that size, I don't know, but that's kind of a new trend popping up. We're seeing a lot.
Same cost, price?
Per ounce-ish.
Ah.
Yeah, it's, you know, again, those are set by the vendors.
Yeah,
So
right.
they decide we supply our pricing formula. And that was it. I told you it was gonna be brief, quick. Shoot some numbers at you and run. Any questions?
Commissioners?
Shoot and run.
Yeah, Alan, thank you very much.
Of course.
Good information. Now, so the commission will temporarily recess its public meeting to discuss proposed stipulated settlement agreements from contest and chases of the ORS 183.4 and is authorized under ORS 192.690. One should be back in 30 minutes or less. We are back in session and they have discussed the stipulated settlement agreements and I would entertain a motion on the alcohol violation.
Chair?
Yes,
In
Commissioner.
regards to the alcohol violations, I move to ratify 4 alcohol stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
Have a second?
Thank you, Chair. I would second.
Second, any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Chari?
Yes.
Commissioner Curran?
Let's come back to her.
Okay. Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn?
Yes.
Commissioner Japong Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Melitas?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Chair Doherty?
Yes.
And 1 second here, it looks like
Commissioner.
Raise her hand.
she has her hand up.
She's also muted.
Right.
Oh, there we go. Woohoo, thank you. Somebody just did, it was saying disabled. I couldn't unmute it. Yes.
Yeah, okay.
All that for you.
Thank you. There is.
Okay.
And entertain a motion on the cannabis violation stipulated settlement agreements.
Chair?
Commissioner.
In regards to the cannabis violations, I move to ratify the cannabis stipulated settlement agreement for the Time Trading Company as proposed by staff.
We have a second. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Chari?
Yes.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn?
Yes.
Commissioner Japong Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Melitas?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Chair Doherty?
Yes. So the motion carries, and then I would entertain a motion on the licensing violation stipulated settlement agreements.
Who's adjourned? Chair.
Commissioner.
I move to ratify the 2 licensing stipulated settlement agreements as proposed by staff.
Second, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Commissioner Chari?
Yes.
Commissioner Curran?
Yes.
Commissioner Floyd?
Yes.
Commissioner Glenn?
Yes.
Commissioner Japong Porter?
Yes.
Commissioner Hayes?
Yes.
Commissioner Melitas?
Yes.
Commissioner Warren?
Yes.
Chair Doherty?
Yes. With that, the commission is adjourned.